hours ago, the American President Donald Trump officially confirmed the capture and arrest of Venezuela President Nicolas Maduro. And this is a very clear explanation of what really transpired and how he was captured.
Let me talk a little bit about the preparation. After months of work by our intelligence teammates to find Maduro and understand how he moved, where he lived, where he traveled, what he ate, what he wore, what were his pets, in early December, our force was set pending a series of aligned events. Key was choosing the right day to minimize the potential for civilian harm and maximize the element of surprise and minimize the harm to the indicted personnel so, as the president said, they could be brought to justice. And as the president said earlier today, weather in Venezuela is always a factor this time of the year. And over the weeks through Christmas and New Year's, the men and women of the United States military sat ready, patiently waiting for the right triggers to be met and the president to order us into action. Last night, the weather broke just enough, clearing a path that only the most skilled aviators in the world could maneuver through. Ocean, mountain, low cloud ceilings, but when tasked with a mission, this organization does not quit. At 10:46 p.m. Eastern Time last night, the president ordered the United States military to move forward with this mission. He said to us, and we appreciate it, Mr. President, good luck and Godspeed. And those words were transmitted to the entire joint force. Over the course of the night, aircraft began launching from 20 different bases on land and sea across the Western Hemisphere. In total, more than 150 aircraft, bombers, fighters, intelligence, reconnaissance, surveillance, rotary wing were in the air last night. Thousands and thousands of hours of experience were airborne. Our youngest crew member was 20, and our oldest crew member was 49, and there's simply no match for American military might. As the night began, the helicopters took off with the extraction force, which included law enforcement officers, and began their flight into Venezuela at 100 feet above the water. As they approached Venezuelan shores, the United States began layering different effects provided by Spacecom, Cybercom, and other members of the interagency to create a pathway. Overhead, those forces were protected by aircraft from the United States Marines, the United States Navy, the United States Air Force, and the Air National Guard. The force included F-22s, F-35s, F-18s, EA-18s, E-2s, B-1 bombers, and other support aircraft, as well as numerous remotely piloted drones. As the force began to approach Caracas, the Joint Air Component began dismantling and disabling the air defense systems in Venezuela, employing weapons to ensure the safe passage of the helicopters into the target area. The goal of our air component is, was, and always will be to protect the helicopters and the ground force and get them to the target and get them home. As the force crossed the last point of high terrain where they'd been hiding in the clutter, we assessed that we had maintained totally the element of surprise. As the helicopter force ingressed towards the objective at low level, we arrived at Maduro's compound at 1:01 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, or 2:01 a.m. Caracas local time, and the apprehension force descended into Maduro's compound and moved with speed, precision, and discipline towards their objective and isolated the area to ensure the safety and security of the ground force while apprehending the indicted persons. On arrival into the target area, the helicopters came under fire, and they replied with that fire with overwhelming force in self-defense. One of our aircraft was hit but remained flyable, and as the president said earlier today, all of our aircraft came home, and that aircraft remained flyable during the rest of the mission. As the operation unfolded at the compound, our air and ground intelligence teams provided real-time updates to the ground force, ensuring those forces could safely navigate the complex environment without unnecessary risk. The force remained protected by overhead tactical aviation. Maduro and his wife, both indicted, gave up and were taken into custody by the Department of Justice, assisted by our incredible U.S. military with professionalism and precision, with no loss of U.S. life. After securing the indicted persons, the force began to prep for departure. Helicopters were called in to exfiltrate the extraction force, while fighter aircraft and remotely piloted aircraft provided overhead coverage and suppressive fire. There were multiple self-defense engagements as the force began to withdraw out of Venezuela. The force successfully exfiltrated and returned to their afloat launch bases, and the force was over the water at 3:29 a.m. Eastern Standard Time with indicted persons on board. And both Maduro and his wife were embarked aboard the USS Iwo Jima. In closing, what we've witnessed today is a powerful demonstration of America's joint force. We think, we develop, we train, we rehearse, we debrief, we rehearse again and again, not to get it right, but to ensure that we cannot get it wrong. Our jobs are to integrate combat power so when the order comes, we can deliver overwhelming force at the time and the place of our choosing against any foe anywhere in the world. I am immensely proud today of our joint force and filled with gratitude to represent them here today. There is simply no mission too difficult for these incredible professionals and the families that stand by them and support them. As we stand here this morning, our forces remain in the region at a high state of readiness, prepared to project power, defend themselves, and our interests in the region. This operation is a testament to the dedication and unwavering commitment to justice and our resolve to hold accountable those who threaten peace and stability. In closing, I want to express my heartfelt gratitude to the brave men and women who executed this mission. Their courage and tireless commitment to our nation are what makes us strong. Thank you, Mr. Secretary, and thank you, Mr. President.
So this is what the chairman of the American Joint Chiefs said regarding the capture and extraction of Venezuela President Nicolas Maduro. And looking at this, this was a highly planned raid which happened in and deep within Venezuela. And a lot was happening. One of the key issues is that the Venezuelan military was caught off guard, and their air defense systems were dismantled. But how did this happen? It means there was a lot of which happened in Venezuela, and you know, that is how dictators often fall. So what it means is there was a lot to consider right here. How is it that it was only Maduro and his wife who were captured and not other government officials of the same government? It tells a lot that there might be somebody from within the government who who allowed such an operation to happen without any challenges and any problems. And what you need to note at this point in time is several forces within the United States of America were involved in this operation. All branches of the United States military were involved, and they were supported by other agencies like the CIA, the NSA, and also the intelligence commands. And 150 aircraft, that is a lot of aircraft only targeting the capital city. It was a lot. It was overwhelming for Venezuela. But you are looking at Venezuela, you are looking at Libya, you are looking at Iraq. You know, the capture of the former leaders of these countries, like the capture of Gaddafi, the capture of Saddam, there was a lot of fighting which happened during the capture of those leaders as compared to the resistance or little or no resistance from the Venezuelan leader. Is it because of now the advanced technology which has been used, or it was because the other former leaders who were captured were had a better resolve and had better plans militarily to fight with the United States of America? So that is a point to consider. You are looking at the scale, you are looking at the speed in which this operation took. The other leaders, it took long to capture them. It took a lot of resistance, a lot of fighting to capture them. But when you're looking at the Venezuelan leader, the entire raid and extraction, it happened swiftly without any form of resistance. It happened overnight, and before it was morning, the mission was complete, and you know, it's something else. Then you are looking at the casualties. There were minimum casualties, especially to the United States of America military, according to what they said. But reports suggest that there were casualties on the side of the Venezuelan presidential guard, those were presently within the compound where Nicolas Maduro was extracted from. Those are the people who were neutralized because they didn't have any kind of support from the external forces. When I'm saying external, I mean outside the compound itself. So the military outside, it couldn't help. Only those who were very, very close to the president tried to resist, but they were neutralized because of the kind of you know, force they were facing. But look at 150 aircrafts against just a president. Look at drones. Look at the F-35 fighters. All these modern war fighters which were hovering over the air, or over the air, to fight or to ready to assist and to help those who were on the ground. You can see that Venezuela was overwhelmed. And the biggest question is, where was Russia? Where was China? Why is it that they didn't pick the intelligence that such kind of an operation was going to happen? They never believed and they never thought such kind of an operation was going to happen. They were not prepared for such kind of an operation. They were preparing for a war. They were preparing for a confrontational war where America was going to come, trying to invade Venezuela, and they were going to fight. It was not like that. They came, extracted the leader or the president who was the most protected individual or person within Venezuela, and they left with minimal casualties. So that is something which is very important to note. And to African dictators or the dictators worldwide, this is a very clear message to say America can do whatever they want, because they actually say that America can go anywhere, everywhere, and do whatever they like without any resistance. We do not know if they can be able to do that against Russia on its soil or against China, because recently we saw China showing off its military might, its military power. They claimed to have a hydrogen bomb. They claimed to have, you know, other nuclear weapons. So I think the only thing which can protect countries like China and Russia is because they have some sort of nuclear weapons. But if there is a conspiracy within Russia or within China, and the forces within Russia and China, they are collaborating with the American forces, you might see such an operation happening, and you might see even powerful dictators like Putin and Xi Jinping being deposed. It's a possibility if there is a cooperation within those countries. And a lot of people believe that there was a lot of cooperation within the Venezuelan government itself, because because of the sanctions, everyone seems to be suffering. A lot of people were suffering right there. And also, the dictator made a very big mistake. He allowed drugs to flow in and out of Venezuela. That is the biggest mistake which he did on his part. That is according to a lot of analysts. So this is a very, very important issue. And 2026 is started differently. And a lot of people, they are talking about the legal limits, the international law. But does the international law exist? If you want to see that the international law is a fallacy, look at what happened to Libya. Look at what happened to Iraq. Look at what happened to various leaders across the world. What is happening in Ukraine? That is a complete violation of sovereignty of Ukraine, where Russia is claiming that Ukraine must not join NATO, it must not do A, B, C, D. As what? So if the international law was in existence, we could have seen consequences on Russia, we could have seen consequences on USA, Britain, and their allies. But it is what it is. This is what we have for you. We were looking at the capture of the Venezuelan dictator, Nicolas Maduro. If you look at the footages of what happened during the past presidential elections, it's a very sad situation. In 2025, they held one-party elections. The opposition boycotted because they felt that it was not an election. And in the past presidential elections, protesters or opposition supporters were run over by armored cars. But a superior came, America came, there is a lot of jubilation, people are in the streets, they are celebrating. But a new government is already in place. The vice president, I think, has taken over the leadership of Venezuela, and I think she is now forming a new government. However, America announced that they are going to be in control or in charge of the Venezuelan economy or government up until everything stabilizes. So we watch to see what happens next.